Hello, my name's Kev, and you might have seen my poster that I put up in Exeter recently as a farewell to teaching. It was this: "Children, you are not data," and that was kind of my goodbye to teaching. And I thought that would be nice. I could say my little piece, and then I could move on and do the next part of my my life, which was hopefully to be writing and illustrating. Now, the response to the poster has been overwhelming, which is lovely to hear, really lovely to hear, and some wonderful messages and lots of people who are agreeing with what I said and the sentiment behind it, but also a lot of messages from parents of children who are concerned about their own children. And they really touched me, and I thought, wow, I've kind of started discussions, and I feel that I needed to say something else. So now this video I never intended to do. It's quite a big thing, as you will find out why in a minute. But I felt it's important to do a video rather than writing. Which kind of brings me on to my first point, which is that I first learned to talk about 3 years ago. Yep. Now, that may sound surprising because obviously I can talk, but what I mean when I say I learned to talk 3 years ago is that I learned to talk in situations that I wouldn't normally talk. I used to find talking difficult in certain situations, which again sounds a little bit strange, but if you're like me, you'll understand. And if you're not like me, then hopefully this video will help you understand what it's like for people who might feel the same way as I do. So I don't know exactly when it started. I think it was sometime maybe teenage years where this and this just disconnected. And all of a sudden I found it difficult to talk in certain social situations, certainly new situations with my friends and my family. I was always the same me, the silly me, the crazy me, the quiet me. Became a little bit more apparent in social situations. I found it harder to talk. And as time went on, this carried on, and some people would describe it perhaps that I was quiet or rude, or I've been called boring. And in one situation as an adult, I went to a function with my wife, and I was in a room where there were lots of people that I didn't know, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed. So as I was leaving the room to just need a bit of headspace, I overheard somebody saying to my wife that I didn't have very much about me, which kind of hurt a little bit, because although it wasn't going on here, it's all up here, which is why I think creativity is such an important part of education, and why it's such an important thing for children to feel valued at doing. Because for me, like I said, this wasn't working, but this was, and I used to soak everything up, and the way that I would express my feelings and my thoughts was through art, and later through music. As you can see behind me, creativity helped me to show how I was feeling and show what was going on in my mind. And there is a mind in there, and I know that there's other children who have the same issues as me. And as you can tell, well, maybe you can't tell, but one thing I used to do when I was growing up, and I think why I found it difficult, was I used to make notes before I would talk to people. Now, like I say, my friends and family, no problem, but if I was going into a new situation, I think it was the unknown that I used to find difficult. So phone conversations, I would make notes beforehand, and I still do. And if I was going to do something that I knew would be a new situation, then in my head I'd mentally rehearse where the conversations could go, because as soon as somebody would spring something on me, then I'd become speechless. Whereas the art and the music, that gave me a voice, and I know that it gives children a voice now, which is why it needs to be valued. Now I've got a piece of paper here now because I've got little notes about things that I want to say. This although I've been rehearsing this in my mind, it's not exactly word perfect for how I would want to be saying it. But still, it's the creativity that allows children and adults like me to connect, to express themselves. And I need to check the notes now. Oh yes, of course. So where did I find my voice? Well, strange as it may sound, but 3 years ago, I decided, because my dad was one, to become a town crier. And as proof, there's my hat, and there's my bell. And I can remember going to the audition, of which I was the only one, but still I was nervous. And I stood up on stage and I read my speech, and I was shaking and my mouth was moving and the words weren't coming out, and it was very, very scary. But somehow I muddled through it, and then I was given the role. Nobody else wanted to do it, but I still love it. And then every time I did it, it got a little bit easier. And I still had, although my mouth was working, I still had other ways of coping. So I would sway when I was holding until I saw myself in the video. And now I have to consciously think to ground myself. And I've only done one since I saw that video of myself. And the last time I did it, I was grounded. So it will take time for, if you're feeling like me, that maybe you haven't found your voice yet, which is why the creative subjects are so important, but also creativity in all lessons. You can be creative in science, you can be creative in maths, but we need to value the creativity of all children. So for me, as I said before, when I found things hard growing up, then creativity was my outlet. So, and it still is. So when my dog died, I wrote a haiku. When my granddad died, I wrote a story. When my great aunt died, I composed some music. When my nan died, I wrote a song. When my son was born, I wrote a lullaby. All of these creative outlets I wouldn't be able to express through my words, but I can through other means. When I write, I have time to think. And social media, I've learned, for me, is actually really important, because I have a chance to think and to compose, and I can be the funny me that I want to be, but in person it's not always there. So I know that there are children like me, and they need to be valued, and I valued that in my teaching, and I could see the children who found the actual process of writing difficult, but their ideas were wonderful. And I valued them, and it was the tearing between, I had a job to do that was highlighting objectives, but equally I did what I had to, but equally I wanted them to have an enjoyment of sharing their ideas, because I know that I felt like that. So if you are sat there and any of these words have resonated with you, then hopefully you'll realise that actually you're not alone. I think people often say, when children find things hard, they say, welcome to the real world. But actually, does the real world have to be like that? Is the real world so hard? Is the real world not compassionate, supportive and nurturing? I certainly can see that from the comments and the people that have spoken to me, that actually there are people out there who value you and value your creativity and value your the way that you express yourself. And if you do choose to pursue your creativity into a job, fantastic. But if you don't, it doesn't matter either. You can still do it, and it gives you a sense of well-being. Creativity has helped me to connect to the world, and I thought going into a creative world, so now I'm going to be doing children's illustration and writing and poetry, Ooh, can't wait. I thought it would be a competitive dog eat dog kind of place. You know, everybody vying for the next book deal and the next job to illustrate. And I went in thinking, right, I'm on my own. I'm gonna battle. I'm gonna see what I can do. And then I found that the creative community is so welcoming. Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody helps each other. It's such a wonderful, supportive place to be. And there are still people who might like your work but don't value your work, if that makes sense. So there'll be people saying, I love your work. I was wondering if you could do this. And then when you say a fee, then they go, oh, I thought you liked drawing. So those people might like art and creativity, but they don't value it. But there are people who do value creativity. And there's so many wonderful jobs out there for all of you that you could do. And the world is waiting for you with open arms. And I'm really excited for you. And I don't know, I think that's about it. I've stayed off the notes. So I'm learning. Now, that was quite heavy. So maybe we could end with, as I said, I'm an illustrator, so perhaps we could end with a drawing. So sunny outside, so let's do maybe an ice cream or something like that. That would be good. Pen doesn't work. Nearly there. That would look good. Pretty good. And that's another thing. Making mistakes is okay.